For the first time in 13 years, the Flames did not make a move prior in the 7 days prior leading up to the trade deadline.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess, and thank you so much for joining me on this trade deadline edition of Locked On Flames. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today, we are going to be talking about the implications of the lack of moves or being a third team in a trade that this is going to have on the team, and why it's not just about the present or even necessarily the near future. And we're going to wrap up the show with some shocking trades, some that really caught my attention and was just blindsided by. But make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And it was just a lackluster day. If I had to use one word to describe the deadline for the Flames, I would say lackluster. You know, they were set up for success. They have enough cap space to be a broker for, a third team in a trade. Was very possible to be done. They had attractive pieces, even if you take Rasmus Anderson and Kadri off the board, that were available. And I just don't understand what this is. The goal is to build a better team, to get younger, to get faster, to get better. And you know that you're going to have to acquire your talent that's going to push you that way through trades, because free agency isn't necessarily the most attractive option. And even if you're not trading for roster players or prospects at the moment, your draft picks are still important. They're still something, right? Like you don't know what it is. Dustin Wolf was a draft pick at some point. Just a 7th round. Little chip on, oh my gosh. What was that website? Cap Friendly. Just saying this is what the Flames have available. But what in the world was Craig Conroy doing? People were calling for Joel Hanley, and you weren't interested in what they were offering for a player that was claimed off of waivers. So you gave up nothing to get him. And not making a lot of money, 33-year-old, very, defensive defenseman. Playoff teams, I'm sure, were calling for him. And I don't know what Brad Treliving, Freudian slip there, what Craig Conroy was offered. Because if you really wanted to make that move, it was a seller's market. I'm sure you could. So did you just change your mind? Same thing with Miramonov. What were the offers that were so lackluster to you that you didn't want to capitalize on this? I understand that Colorado called on Kadri and, obviously checked with Kadri and picked his brain and said basically thanks but no thanks. But there are movable pieces on this team. Buffalo wanted Connor Zary for Dylan Cousins. Absolutely not. I could see this team moving Martin Pospisil. I could see them moving, Blake Coleman or Ryan Lomberg. Really, anyone that plays on the fourth line, they could have moved. And really anyone except Uyghur, I would say, and obviously Anderson, because there's conversations going on there, soon to be anyways, why you aren't trading them. Like, I think everyone was kind of up for grabs. To me, no one on this team is an untouchable except Dustin Wolf and Connor Zary. But it would have, like, if, let's say this for an example. If Matthew Tkachuk was like, I want to come back to Calgary, and Calgary was like, okay, at what price? And Bill Zito says, oh, Connor Zary, great. Send Connor Zary. Bring Matthew Tkachuk back. Like, there are certain scenarios where he is touchable. But the Flames don't have any, like, they don't have any untouchables. They have unmovable contracts. They got plenty of those, but there was no reason just to, like, stand by and watch. I don't understand. And then yesterday they were talking about how, they're going to be adding because they really want to make a push for the playoffs and they think that they deserve that. And they think that, Craig Conroy wants to reward his players. Did he reward them by, like, not having them move? I don't know. This roster is the same roster that just went 2-2-2, couldn't score a goal in over 9 periods of hockey. But sure, sounds like a plan. It confuses me, it baffles me, and I do see people drawing comparisons to Brad Treliving because what the heck? Like, what the heck? And I get the loyalty thing. I completely understand because we're going to talk about it later in the show, but player loyalty goes so far. At some point, you just have to draw a line and accept that this is a business. Tough decisions have to be made, and it's not personal. It is literally just a business decision. But coming up next, we're going to talk about Craig Conroy's media response and his little post-trade deadline press conference sort of deal. And does any of this actually make sense? And are we, in fact, sticking to the plan? When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I really, really enjoy or encourage the same game parlay. I think that it's a fun way to make the game more watchable and more enjoyable to watch because you're actually watching for something other than the Flames maybe not being able to score a goal. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And my God. I talked about it on yesterday's show about, were they just going to wait until the 11th hour? Was that the plan? Were they waiting for some other pieces to fall into place before making a move? Did it make any sort of sense for them to go at rentals? No. And it did not make sense for them to take on anyone's long-term contract or salary cap dump necessarily. But Ryan Pike tweeted, he chatted with Flames general manager Craig Conroy, and I guess no one really needed a third party to facilitate deals today. I feel like this is the first trade deadline where that has ever happened, at least in recent years, because I feel like we have seen, this player's going to this player, but it's also going here because they need to retain some salary. And I feel like we typically see 2 or 3 of those every season, and we just didn't have that today, which is bananas that the Leafs were able to acquire players and go over cap space just a little bit before dismantling things, and not need a third team. I do not think Brad Treliving would have ever called Craig Conroy, but can you do me a solid? That's gonna be pretty awkward. But the opportunity lined up perfectly for the Flames to do this. And naturally, the opportunity did not present itself for the Flames to do this. They didn't feel the need to add any of the rentals. They weren't really interested in them. He credited the team's success for quieting the noise around the team and credited the team's veterans for setting the tone for the season. The reliance on the veterans, I think, is a double-edged sword because, if you're having a down year and you go and trade Rasmus Anderson, who's the second longest tenured Flame at this point, and really the heartbeat of your organization, has been through the ups and downs, is not afraid to meet with the media, addresses the media, and plays well. You go and trade him, that you're ripping something away. And it can absolutely dismantle the vibes and kind of put everyone on edge. But you also need to really figure out a way to not be so reliant on them. The Flames have such a good leadership group. They do. In fact, I think everyone over the age of 30 has an A. That's at least what it feels like. Not saying that they should trade everyone, but 1 or 2 less A's would have been okay. The room would have survived. The season might not have, but you don't care at that point. You needed to sell. It was a seller's market. And you did nothing. You sat around and twiddled your thumbs and enjoyed a nice sunny day in Dallas, Texas. I don't know. I guess I don't know necessarily if everyone is on the same page. And I understand. Fans are going to be team playoff, team tank, but one way or another. And some fans are going to be hypercritical. Others are just going to be like, well, Conroy knows best. And that's fine. That's fine. But as someone who talks about this team every day, I do not know how Craig Conroy is watching this team. The same team that I'm watching with my own 4 eyes, and thinks that this is a playoff team and that they wouldn't benefit from adding younger players. Or, okay, maybe we trade this guy, pluck him, and slot in someone else, like another young guy that you've been trying to work into the lineup, like a Rory Currens or a Solyov, Jeremy Poirier. Like, there are a number of players that are trying to break onto this roster, and there just aren't enough spots. You need to remember that your plan is to get better, to build a better roster, a younger team, even if that means taking a step back. Like, great, you had one top 10 draft pick. That's not going to fix your problem. I'm not saying tank, I'm not saying throw the season away, but you have to make moves that are ultimately going to be more beneficial for your team. Look at Mike Greer and what he has done in San Jose. Has some of it been like, what is this? Yeah, of course. No general manager is hitting 1,000. No one. There's going to be a few swings and misses. But moving pieces along is part of this rebuild. You can't hold on to things because you feel like it's the right decision. Emotionally, I guess, is what I would put it at. Because, number one, you probably could have fetched a first-round pick for Rasmus Anderson and maybe a prospect. Kadri would have brought you in a haul. Not Taylor Hall, but it's okay to take a step back and miss the playoffs for a year or two. I promise you, the ownership's bank accounts, they're not going to get that much smaller. They're not going to see this detrimental, deficit. However, they could see more if they make a long playoff run. But you need to take the lumps before you get that. So, I don't know. I don't understand the full reasoning. Again, even if you don't trade the big names, you still could have traded Joel Hanley, and instead you're looking to extend him. Make it make sense. But coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show with some of my most shocking trades and kind of things from left field, and sharing my thoughts and opinions on a former Flame moving west. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. Andrei Kuzmenko is on the move again. He made a quick pit stop in Philly, scored the goal against the Flames, and said, "Okay, let's ship him out." And so he's going back. He's heading back west to LA. I hope his time in Philly was fun. Hope the little pit stop was nice. Best of luck to you in LA. I think LA is potentially going to make the playoffs. I feel like they needed to make a few more adjustments as well at the deadline in order to get better. But I don't know. Maybe this seals the deal at a real playoff run for them. The trade that everyone was waiting for was obviously Mikko Rantanen, who was traded to Carolina earlier this winter and did not sign any sort of extension with Carolina and became available at the trade deadline because things were just not working out in, the way that he wanted them to. So it was in his best interest to leave, and he headed back to Dallas, or not back to the Central Division with Dallas. Logan Stankoven is the return as well as a first round draft pick. And he signed in a 7-year extension at like $12 million. So I'm sure Colorado is kicking themselves, but I don't care. I guess Colorado also called for Kadri. They didn't happen, and then they traded for Charlie Coyle, who is also a center. So again, maybe the Flames. I don't think Kadri wanted to go back to Colorado. I think that's really, he wanted to stay. But I mean, hey, whatever gets the job done, I guess. And the trade that rocked every hockey fan to their core, Brad Marchand to the Florida Panthers. Yes, the Boston Bruins captain was traded to Florida for a conditional second round pick that may become a first round pick. The condition is Marchand has to play at least 50% of the playoff games that the Panthers appear in. Okay. Wow. And this is what I'm talking about, right? This is the loyalty that I could never see Craig Conroy making a move like this. Because when you move a player like that and like your team's already like in despair, it can obviously affect the room. And when you don't have a deep leadership group, well, you're kind of SOL. And what's bananas to me is that the Panthers have eliminated Boston in the playoffs back-to-back years. And last spring, Sam Bennett punched Marchand in the back of the head and gave him a concussion and took him out of the playoffs. Like, no one else wanted to give you a first in your division, dude. Like, I don't know. I know we talk about Craig Conroy making questionable moves, but like, that is crazy to me. That is a situation where you sit with your hands in your lap and you don't make a move. That is when doing nothing is better than something. I don't understand. I know the Flames said that they weren't interested in any rentals, but I do wonder if they called for Marchand. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't necessarily. 20 plus goal scorer, but a nice leader, a captain. So I don't know. I guess anything is possible. Anything happens. And this is why Don Sweeney is a questionable general manager. He's the reason the Bruins are in this mess and sold and are in a proper rebuild before the Flames, who've been doing this for like 2 years. But you do have to have some guts to make these types of moves. It doesn't have to be as intense as trading your captain, but trading your 20 goal scorer. No one is taking on the Jonathan Huberdeau contract, so like don't get any ideas there. But trading Kadri, trading Blake Coleman, like these are things that could yes, it's going to rock your locker room. Yes. But then they go out and play the game. We know that this team is quiet. They keep Like, what happens in the Flames locker room stays in the Flames locker room. No, no one is telling Elliot Friedman that they had a players-only meeting. Agents have learned to kind of keep quiet. I think back to last year when Zadorov's agent threw out that he wanted a trade. Really out of nowhere, like mid-game. That was great. Matt Coronado's agent retweeting stuff earlier this season. Alan Walsh, when Sutter was a coach and him and Huberdeau were butting heads. Like, that stuff's going to happen, but it's happening a lot less with the Flames. And I think that that's a good thing. So, ultimately, a flop of a trade deadline. I wish Craig Conroy at least traded Joel Hanley for some draft capital. Would have settled for a 4th-round draft pick, a 5th, even something. There was a lot more that could have been done and wasn't. So I wish we were all on the same page. A lot easier said than done. But that will do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for tuning in and making Locked On Flames part of your trade deadline coverage. As always, make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And I will see you all on Monday when, who knows, maybe we'll learn some more about some players that the Flames got calls on.